Welcome to the second Patreon question show with questions from the patrons on the YouTube channel for everyone. I won't waste more of your time with an introduction, so let's just jump into the first question. First question. What rookie pick are you comfortable trading for a random 2024 first right now? So typically in the first round, I would say, obviously, I would trade any second for a 2024 first. In a first round, I usually put the line around 109 or 110. I think that's about right. If you trade the 110 for a 2024 first, a 110, it's nice, but it usually does not provide high-end value, right? Doesn't provide high-end value. 2024 first gives you a range of outcomes that includes things like the 101, 102, 103. Gives you a shot at high-end value. So I'd be comfortable trading the 110 or later. 109 is kind of on the line. Maybe, maybe not. Anything earlier than 109, 108 or earlier is a hard no. So that's where I'm at. I'd say it's like a typical year. 2023 class looks strong. 2024 class also looks strong. So yeah, keep it around that 109 line like a usual year. Next question. What is the best way to get maximum return on draft picks? Okay. When should you let league mates know you're willing to trade your rookie picks? Generally talking about first round rookie picks. So generally, the best time to get maximum return on draft picks is when you're on the clock in a rookie draft. Generally. However, if you get a good offer now, take it. Don't wait. Don't wait, well, I could get more later. Maybe, maybe not. If you get a good offer now, take it. But typically, when the pick is on the clock is when the offers are the best. That's just the typical experience. But there are always exceptions. And if you get a smash accept in your inbox, take it. Let's see. Next question. And I want to thank my patrons for putting in all of these questions. The only way to put questions in for this show, it's obviously recorded, is to be a member of the Patreon. I have a thread in my Patreon Discord, which is available to all tiers of patrons. And you can put your questions in. I have a thread, and then they will be answered on this show. Everyone can see the show, but the only way to ask questions is to be a patron. So I will put the link is at the bottom in the show comments, and I will also put it up. You know, it's always on my social media, YouTube, everywhere. So just so you know. Kyler plus which 23 first pick for Lawrence is fair? So the examples given, the 105 and the 103, I understand enjoying Trevor Lawrence. I like him, you know, a lot more than Kyler Murray, who has a lot of risk. I don't know if I would add the 103 in a super flex. That's going to be probably the worst of Young and Stroud. I don't think I can add that to Kyler Murray to get to Trevor Lawrence. The 105, then I think we're starting to talk a more reasonable, you know, suggestion. That's either the best, could be Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Addison, or Jackson Smith-Njigba. It's almost certainly going to be one of those players. Seems still a little pricey, but I could understand it. My value line is probably a little bit lower. I think a top 6 pick, because for me in Superflex, yeah, Bijan at 1, Young at 2, Stroud at 3, Gibbs, Addison, and JSN. Those are kind of my next 3. Anything 107 or later, I think 107 is the closest to fair because that's your pick of everyone else. Could it be Quentin Johnston, potentially Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, maybe Michael Mayer in a tight end premium, or whoever falls out on top of Zach Charbonnet, Zach Evans, Devon Achane, Jalen Hyatt. There's a lot of Kayshon Boutte even. You never know. A lot of movement there. You get your choice of all of those players. I would say 107 is fair. Anything higher is too much. Lower seems to be not enough. Okay. Great question from Yakko Brett. Let's see. Where would you put Michael Mayer in your overall tight end rankings? So let's read the overall tight end rankings and let's just give a good idea. And of course, those rankings are also available on the Patreon. It's the only place you can get them. I do post previews on Twitter, but if you want the full rankings, they're only on the Patreon. So where would Michael Mayer fall? Let's see. So I have Kyle Pitts at 1, Mark Andrews at 2, Travis Kelce at 3, TJ Hawkinson at 4. I think that while I like Michael Mayer, I don't think he's going to be ahead of those guys. Even TJ Hawkinson, I think, had similar draft capital to what Michael Mayer is going to get, probably even better, and has had a pretty successful NFL career. Still only 25. Then at 5, I get to Pat Freiermuth, Dallas Goedert, and George Kittle, 5, 6, and 7. For me, that range seems the right range. And then at 8 and 9, I have Greg Dulcich, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, Darren Waller. I think he's going to be ahead of those guys. So I think he's going to be below Pitts, Andrews, Kelsey, and Hawkinson, but above Dulcich, Njoku, Schultz, and Waller. So he's either going to come in at 5, 6, 7, or 8. But he won't be below 8. 8 is the lowest he could come in for me. He is an excellent prospect. Excellent. He's going to have good draft capital. I expect him to be very successful in the NFL. I mean, we hear what everyone says. I mean, they could not guard him at Notre Dame. Teams adjusted entire defenses to shift to him. I mean, we know how great he is. Don't be afraid if he doesn't run fast at the combine. He's not going to. Do not be afraid. So yeah, minimum tight end 8, maximum, I think, tight end 5. We'll see in that range. Based on your current rookie ranks, who are your favorite values in each round? I appreciate this question. It's a difficult question to answer because I have my rookie ranks, but I honestly don't have a good sense of where people are actually going. Yeah, I have DLF rookie ADP, but some of these ADPs, I just like Bryce Young at 8.5 in a 1 QB. I don't know about that. I mean, Michael Mayer was 13.6. Seems a little low. You know, some of these things, I mean, Cedric Tillman, 34.3. That's not accurate. And then, you know, Parker Washington and Xavier Hutchinson are too low. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson at 1 QB are way too high. It's a lot of movement. You know, players like Evan Hull are not on the radar like they should be. Tucker Kraft is still going to move up. I mean, there's a lot of movement that I would say needs to happen. So it's hard to tell who values are. I will say, though, I will say that I think there's going to be some wide receiver value. You know, right now, Cedric Tillman is the best value according to my ranks, as in biggest difference between my ranks and the current ADP. But I'm not sure. February ADP is always kind of pre-combine. It's tough to judge what it really means. But I would put him out there. But I would just say to keep an eye on it. And yeah, it's difficult to tell what consensus values are at this time. Ryan asks, do we think Amon-Ra has a chance to lose value this year? I think it's an interesting question, given that the Lions could draft another wide receiver and or Jameson Williams takes another step. So it's a good question. I mean, right now I have Amon-Ra at Dynasty wide receiver 6. How much value could he really gain? I mean, not much. He's interesting. Someone who could be a buy or a sell for me. Because if I have to pay Dynasty wide receiver 6, I'm not going to pay it. I don't think there's not much upside there. He's not going to be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. He's not that. He's not those players. They're going to be 1 and 2. So CeeDee Lamb is also pretty secure. I mean, he's similar age, you know, better track record of production overall, and, you know, better draft capital, all that. So no Jameson Williams coming in. So yeah, I would say he's a chance to lose value, but I have also seen him valued in some leagues more like a low-end wide receiver 1 or a high-end wide receiver Dynasty 2. If that's the case, then I would still be buying. But yes, to answer this question, yes, I don't see much way he gains value. I think it's going to either stay the same or go up or go down. Sorry. It's not, yeah, it's just Jameson Williams is a risk. And, you know, Jared Goff, he played well last year, but we know he has a history of sometimes not being so good. So yeah, I would go there. I don't expect the Lions to draft another wide receiver high. They just picked Jameson Williams in the first round last year. I do not think they're going to spend another first round pick on a wide receiver. Maybe they take one, you know, on day 2 somewhere, but that is not going to scare me for Amon-Ra. More for Jameson Williams if they do that. Okay. Based on your current rookie ranks, what are your tier breaks and what would you be looking to get to move down tiers during a rookie draft? So let's take the second part first. The second part, I don't have a general rule. Well, I need this to do this. People always want to give you that advice, right? They always want to give you that advice because it sounds good. It's very simple. It's very helpful. No, it's not. It's not helpful, but it sounds helpful. We don't have general rules for moving up and down tiers. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to recognize where the tiers are and realize that we need good value to move, but we're not going to have rules and guidelines. We're going to take each offer one at a time. And, you know, I know it's more complicated. We have to go through the offers that way, right? I mean, it's more complicated, but just because advice is simpler doesn't mean it's better. So now that we took care of the second part, let's look at the first part. So At this point, we can't do tiers all the way down the board. We don't even have a combine. We can't do tiers way down the board, but we can do tiers at the beginning because we know about these players. We've known about these players for years. We know who these players are. Let's look at a super flex first, I would say. Bijan Robinson, he's in a tier by himself. He's 101 easily. He's going to be 101. Very clear. Then probably Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are going to be 2 and 3 for most people. Probably with a decent gap, both above to Bijan and below. So that's probably a tier. Then I have the grouping of Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Addison, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's probably tier 3. And then tier 4 is going to include a lot of players. Quentin Johnston, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Zach Charbonnet, Devon Achane, Michael Mayer, Zach Evans. I mean, there's a lot of room in that tier. So I would say essentially Bijan, Young and Stroud, Gibbs, Addison, JSN, and then the tier 4 I expect to be large. I'm just not sure. Is it going to contain 6 players, 4 players, maybe even 9 players? I don't know. But that's where the tiers go. And then in a 1 QB, I would say it's similar. Take the quarterbacks out. Bijan is tier 1. Gibbs, Addison, JSN, that's tier 2. And then tier 3 is that bigger group that includes all the same players. Plus, would have been the quarterbacks and Superflex. So that's how I would look at it for now. Yeah. Let's see. What is a good value to trade DeAndre Swift for Superflex? And would you consider holding off until after the draft and move him now? No. DeAndre Swift has been a sell for me for a long time. We can't have in year 3, it's not going to work. In year 3, why was there a reduction in work? See, that's the problem. That's not going to work for me. It's no good. This year, we went down to 7.1 carries per game. I mean, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. There's really no excuse for that level of work. And yeah, was he involved in receiving game? 48 receptions in 14 games, 3.4 catches a game, 27.8 yards. I mean, that's not special. That's nothing. But somehow in February or January's DLF ADP here, he was valued at RB9, which is lunacy. That's insane. I have him right now. Let's see. Yeah, I have him at way lower. I mean, not way lower. I guess I have him at running back 13, but I have him at 50th overall. So I just don't like the running backs in that range. I would get out. If someone wants to trade for DeAndre Swift, I'll take any first in a Superflex. Any first, 112 even. I wouldn't wait. There's been a lot of buzz about them taking a running back in the draft. I wouldn't wait. Jamal Williams was scary. I mean, Jamal Williams is just a guy. I mean, he's just a guy. He's fine. He's just a guy. And he nuked DeAndre Swift. What if they had a much scarier version of Jamal Williams? What if they signed David Montgomery in free agency? Why couldn't they do that? Why not? They can afford it. That's a much scarier version of Jamal Williams. What if, they have plenty of draft picks, don't they? I mean, they made a deal, for in the Matthew Stafford trade. And they have extra picks. They have 2 picks in the second round, 49 and 56, and 1 in the third. I absolutely see running back being a possibility. I don't want to wait on DeAndre. So if you can get any first, I'll take it. Or pivot to another position. I mean, if you could turn DeAndre Swift into, somehow Hollywood Brown, maybe, I would consider that. That would be a good player to consider. Let's see. From Ryan. Which players would benefit most from their team adding Aaron Rodgers? Jets, Raiders, etc. They would both benefit for sure, but would Rodgers have a larger impact on one of those teams? Rodgers is going to go to one of those teams most likely. I would lean toward the Raiders, and I do think he helps Devontae Adams significantly. Might help Darren Waller, might help Hunter Renfrow. I do think he makes a difference. I do think even now, Aaron Rodgers is a difference maker compared to Derek Carr. Now, I like Derek Carr better for Dynasty because he's 8 years younger. And I think Aaron Rodgers is in the stages of considering retirement. I'd predict 2 more years. 2 more years from Aaron Rodgers. Whereas Derek Carr, I feel like his career is nowhere near over. I think he's only 32. So he could give you 5-6 more years. So I would still prefer Derek Carr in Dynasty. But for fantasy this year, I would rather have Aaron Rodgers for my fantasy weapons. And I think the Raiders would be the team that really benefits because the Jets, and they have a lot of cap, they don't have that much cap space, but they have some and room to maneuver. You saw the weapons do okay with Mike White. not Zach Wilson. So, yeah, I mean, I would lean toward the Raiders here. And then another question. If Levis goes off the board as QB2 in the real NFL draft, do you rank him higher than Stroud or Young, even though consensus has been to have Levis ranked lower than them pre-draft? No. No, I wouldn't do that because, well, unless Stroud or Young fall out of the top 10, then maybe I'll think about it. Maybe I'll think about it in that case. But to me, the difference between Stroud and Young and Levis and prospect quality is miles and miles and miles. I mean, they're not even close. They're not close. I mean, I would not give Levis more than a mid to late first round grade, even in this quarterback market. And same for Anthony Richardson. That's the grade I would give him in the real NFL draft. Stroud and Young, I would grade as top 5 picks. I would be comfortable with them in the top 5 if I were an NFL franchise. Comfortable with them at number 1? I mean, that's what you have to do. The fine quarterback prospects for a number 1 overall pick. Just fine. Not special for a number 1 pick, but fine. So, yeah, I can't. I'm not going to go back on that evaluation because they're like 3 tiers apart from me. So, I'm going to stick with Stroud and Young at quarterback 1 and 2 overall. And then Levis and Anthony Richardson will come in behind them. Anthony Richardson could be 3 if the draft capital difference between him and Levis is not that big. If Anthony Richardson goes in the late first, then he'll probably stay as QB4. But we'll have to see. Can you rank the 4 quarterbacks this year to some quarterbacks in the most recent years as prospects? Pickett, Lance, Fields, Mac Jones. Well, it's a good question. So Bryce Young it's a tough thing. I mean, last year's quarterback class was bad. So I would say that all of these quarterbacks are probably better than any quarterback last year. Anthony Richardson is a total wild card. I mean, we don't know. I mean, he didn't show any ability to pass the ball in college. I mean, his ceiling is to a degree like Josh Allen. He has the arm, didn't show any accuracy in college, was bad passer in college, but you're seeing traits. That's the ceiling. I mean, if it all hits, I wouldn't get carried away. I'm not optimistic. Will Levis to me is just another Zach Wilson. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't think he's good. It's just not for me. And then, Young and Stroud are solid. I mean, neither of them are like, we can look at Bryce Young, his statistics here. We can pull them up. Yeah, I mean, he's an accurate passer. I mean, we all know that. He's a good passer. Not really much of a runner. I mean, is he comparable to Tua? It's a little short. It's the one thing that scares me. I've heard a lot of discussion about that. Very short. I don't know. I mean, what's Bryce Young's ceiling? Drew Brees? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Drew Brees is also short, very accurate. Maybe not the tall quarterback you think of, not Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, CJ Stroud, he also had a very solid college career. And I would say that, obviously he also very accurate. Both of them take care of the ball very well. Neither of them are like big runners. So it's, yeah. But I would say the Will Levis, Zach Wilson comp is probably the best of any comp in the most recent years. But yeah, I would not compare any of the quarterbacks this year to any of these 4 listed. There's no Kenny Pickett, like older prospect who stuck around forever. There's no Trey Lance, like lower level of competition type. Fields is more mobile and he's more mobile than younger Stroud. And he's much more of a polished passer than Anthony Richardson. And Mac Jones is just kind of solid and kind of boring. I think that Stroud and Young are have a little more upside than that. Which players do you expect to have a breakout in 2023? Can you list 1 for every position? So when we say a breakout, what does that mean? Like for quarterback, I would obviously put Trevor Lawrence on there. I think Trevor Lawrence cements himself as, in the top tier of quarterback. Because outside of that, I mean, a lot of the guys who are like lower in value are unappealing to me and not players I'm expecting to have a massive breakout. That's why they're down there. I don't hate Brock Purdy if he wins the starting job and continues to play well as someone to have a breakout. But Trevor Lawrence is the one. I mean, I wrote an article for DLF about the Jaguars offense emerging. He would probably be my first name. Yeah, and then, honestly, at quarterback, Bryce Young. Bryce Young, I think, is going to come in and be good immediately. Immediately. So that would be my second name. Running back, Rashad White is a good value, I think. He's someone who could move up the board. And Dameon Pierce, actually, I think, if he survives the offseason, is someone who showed a lot of talent as a rookie. I mean, he was workhorse back. And I think that he could have a great second season if he keeps the job. It's always a big if with running backs. You have to survive the offseason. But he's someone who, if he does and is cemented as the starter, definitely someone I would consider as a potential breakup. But Rashad White is the top name on my list. Wide receiver, I mean, Jameson Williams cannot be as bad as he was in year one. So he's probably number one on my list for a breakout. Drake London, I think, is going to actually show that he can be good for fantasy. Absolutely. He's on my list. Chris Olave, if you count him. But I think a lot of people are already pretty high on him. Jahan Dotson, I think he's very talented. I just hope Sam Howell doesn't screw him over. But Jahan Dotson is a player I really like and who I think could, have a second year. And then, I mean, other than that, those are some of the main names. I do like. There are some sleepers, but they're pretty deep sleepers. I do have some hope for Josh Palmer, but if they cut Keenan Allen to replace him with Jackson Smith-Njigba, then I don't know how much hope I have. And then if you want to go really down, John Mechie. Don't forget about John Mechie. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he was out of Alabama, had great production, good draft capital, went to the Texans, and then he had leukemia, unfortunately. And that sucked for, his development and just sucked for him. But he sounds like he is ready to participate in the program, season program. And I would just not rule him out just because he missed this first year because of an illness. Wouldn't rule him out for that. It has nothing to do with his skill or play on the field. If he is healthy, he is someone who has a chance, and we'll have to see. As for tight end breakouts are very difficult. I would say Pat Freiermuth, who I have at tight end 5, I think is someone who could gain some value. He's pretty young, 24, he turns 25 in October, I believe. Guys like George Kittle is probably too old to break out, so I don't think he counts. Trey McBride, I think, is someone who is a great prospect. Didn't do much in year one. Maybe year two will be better. Chigozie Okonkwo, I think everyone's talking about him, though. And then we have the free agents. Dalton Schultz is already highly valued. I would keep an eye on Mike Gesicki. If he gets a good free agent landing spot, he could be someone who breaks out a little bit, but maybe not too much. And then Jelani Woods, the athleticism is there. The draft capital was there. But he just didn't show much in year one. And then Jake Ferguson, if Dalton Schultz walks in free agency, the Jake Ferguson 4th-round pick last year from the Cowboys, just someone to consider. I'm not saying that he's going to be anything special, but he's someone to consider. And if you want one really deep name, on the Texans, there's a tight end named Tegan Quitoriano. Kind of took over a little bit of the playing time from Brevin Jordan at the end of the year. That is a dart throw of all dart throws. But, I'm not saying I expect him to have a breakout, but in a deep tight end premium league, put him on the back of your roster and just see what happens. Okay, last question. Would you ask for a 23 first for Eckler and the same question for Kupp? Trying to figure out what I can get for them. If you're rebuilding, now's the time to sell them. Between the two, I actually have them valued pretty similarly. Kupp I have as worth a little bit more. I think Kupp has more time left than Eckler. I'm worried the Chargers could have not someone to supplant Eckler, but they could draft a running back to play that Sony Michel, Joshua Kelly, old Melvin Gordon role. Someone a little more scary to play that role, to take some of the goal line away from Eckler. So I trust Kupp a little bit more if I have to have one die on my team. So I'd ask a little bit more for Kupp, but I think in a super flex, you're not going to get into that top 6, that Bijan, Young, Stroud, Gibbs, Addison, or JSN. I think you're going to have to settle. I think you're going to have to settle for less, unfortunately. I think you're going to have to take 107 or later. And if you're in a rebuild, this is it. This is it. This is when you sell them. This is when you sell them. You're not going to get more. Their value is not going to go up. So just sell them. Nothing's going to happen to Kupp. You can wait to sell Kupp until August. Eckler, I'm a little worried about the draft. If they really take someone serious in the second round or so, and that's someone who has like a profile to take some carries away from Eckler, or they sign someone in free agency who's significant, could take a little bit of value away from Eckler. So Eckler, I might look to move sooner rather than later. Nothing's going to go wrong for Kupp. So you can hang on to him and wait until August, and when people realize they need to score points, you can move him. But again, I don't think you're getting any top 6 pick for either of them. Might want to try for a 24 first and second. Maybe you can get that if people are willing to sell next year, something like that. But anyway, I appreciate everyone who asked questions in Patreon. If you go to the show notes at the bottom, you can see the Patreon link. And other than that, I have my regular shows on here. Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's kind of the Ask Tyler show, the open to everybody version of this. And then on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we have our topic show. This week, we're going to do a rookie show, kind of an early rookie look. And it'll be fun. But until next time, I thank everyone for watching, and I will see you all later.